Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Laughter Through Tears, the 120 podcast. I'm your host, Jackie. I live in Maryland, and I'm a septic shock survivor. It'll be almost 5 years ago now in May where I suffered from septic shock that came about because of a perforation in my colon, and it was caused by undiagnosed diverticulitis. And they got me flown to Baltimore, saved my life. All that, long recovery. Many of you listening and we're watching who are survivors, you know the drill. You know what it's like. Anyway, so I wanted to start this podcast, and which I did last year, to bring up raise all of our voices and make sure all survivors are heard. And also because I'm a person with chronic illnesses and disability, we also talk about things about chronic illness and disability on here, and they actually overlap a lot of the times with topics about sepsis. So I want to welcome you all here today. That we are in for a really great episode. I am talking to someone in the UK today, another sepsis survivor, and her name is Beth Budgen. She's 46. She's from Hartley Wintney, Basingstoke in England, Beth?
Yeah,
Is that correct?
absolutely.
Okay. I want to make sure I had the geography right. And she thought that she was suffering from just a run-of-the-mill cold on Christmas Eve, 2022. So this was just a few years ago for Beth. As she spent the night at her sister's home in agonizing pain, she started vomiting. The local hospital suspected she had like a combination flu and pneumonia thing going on, but it was actually much more than that. And Beth was transferred to a specialty hospital where she was put on ECMO, barely clinging to life. If you can just imagine going from thinking you have a cold to being put on a machine that is cycling your blood pumping for your heart and your lungs. And that's where Beth wound up. In addition to having a terrible flu and pneumonia cocktail, it seems that Beth was also suffering from Strep A, a serious bacterial infection, and she wound up in septic shock. And she almost didn't make it, and we're really lucky to have her here today with us. So today, Beth is here. She's going to tell us her story of terror and triumph and strength and determination. You're incredible, Beth. Your story, just amazing. And that is what has led her through her recovery and towards eventually her advocacy with the nonprofit charity Sepsis Research, FEAT. That's FEAT. And I am going to start here with Beth. Beth, thank you again for coming on the podcast. It's great to have you here.
Absolute pleasure, Jackie. So,
You
yeah, I guess, do you want me to sum up kind of how it all went, how it all started?
That's exactly where I was going to get started, because your story starts so mildly apparent. I had a cold. I mean, I had a cold last week too, and you don't think it's anything, and yours turned into something. So please elaborate, if you will.
Yeah, I guess it's the kind of ultimate cautionary tale, really. So, just before Christmas, I felt like I had a pretty nasty cold. I actually felt like it had been starting to get better as we approached Christmas. But my mum also had a cold. Everyone was supposed to be coming to me for Christmas. My mum called me Christmas Eve and said, "Hey, I'm not going to make it. Like, I feel absolutely awful." So we were like, "Okay, let's decamp, change venues, go closer to my mum, which is about an hour away," which is how I happened to be at my sister's house. Otherwise, I would have been home alone. And I don't know about you, but I was brought up in one of those households whereby you go to school unless that you're physically being sick, or it's you don't you
Same.
don't laugh lightly.
Yes.
So I was very much kind of, sort of thinking, oh, just crack on, get on with it. And I think that was probably exacerbated slightly by the fact that it was Christmas and no one really wants to bother the health services around Christmas time. So, yeah, as you say, I ended up at my sister's house having some severe pain from what I thought was a cold that I was getting over. What I now realise was my kidneys shutting down. I was vomiting blue liquid, and in severe pain. And it was only once my sister said to me, "You've had your gallbladder out. Like, is this more painful or less painful than gallstones?" Which I remember my mum telling me when she had gallstones, it was more painful than giving birth to twins. Yeah,
Mm.
like naturally. So I
Yeah,
was like,
I had my gallbladder out. I think, yes, it's painful.
it's painful. So
Yeah.
apparently I said, "Oh no, it's much more painful," which I don't recall at all. And at that point, my sister called the emergency services and they came pretty quickly. And as you say, turns out what I thought was a cold was flu, pneumonia, and Strep A. And I went into septic shock really quite quickly. So I spent Christmas Day in hospital. By Boxing Day, my family were told to come and say goodbye to me because I wasn't going to make it because I wasn't responding to life support. And then thankfully, one of the doctors suggested an ECMO machine, which there are only 8 in the whole of the UK. 3 of those are in London, which was only about an hour away from me, and I got the last one. So, yeah, I was given a 5% chance of survival, but survive I did, albeit, with some pretty horrendous changes. I like to call it my refashion of my body. So I lost both legs below the knee and parts of both hands. So yeah, it was very unexpected. I knew nothing about sepsis before all this, and um, I guess much like you, I'm very keen to spread the word now, working with Sepsis Research FEAT on their board of trustees, just to kind of make sure that people know what it is and the symptoms to look out for, but also how vitally important research is in terms of providing better patient outcomes.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. And, I can't even imagine, much less a shock to you, how quickly you got sick and how quickly you declined. But it's, another person I had as my guest last night, we were recording an episode, and I was talking about like our family members, like, what are they thinking? Because, you know, it was just a cold.
Yeah, I
And
think.
then they're looking for ECMO for you.
Yeah. And I think it was much harder on them for sure in the first 4 to 6 weeks than it was on me, because I was put in a coma. I was in a coma for nearly 2 months. I knew nothing about what was going on
We're
until they
out of
woke me
it.
up. Exactly. But for
Yes.
them, they're wondering if I'm gonna make it every single day, having to travel sort of an hour away to come and see me, knowing that I'm not gonna be awake. Yeah, I think it's very, very hard on friends and family. Well, we're kind of in that space of not having a clue what's going on. And yeah, it's tough.
And you bring up a good point too about, sometimes the hospital is very far away. And, I was flown to one that was over an hour away, hour drive from where we lived. And, so there's a lot of burden it placed on the family, and worry and concern and fear, just outright fear.
Absolutely.
Because this shocking thing just happens, seemingly out of nowhere. Um, did you what ultimately, like, you very nicely summarized that. Was there any point in the beginning, any of your symptoms, like, was anything, like, troublesome where you thought, "Maybe this is a little bit more than what we're thinking," or
Yeah, honestly, nothing. So it was only until Christmas Eve, my sister had made us some dinner, and we were having a glass of wine, and I was like, I can't eat this. And I was just kind of really uncomfortable, like just in my side here. And I just couldn't get comfy. I was in what I would call kind of like a slow grumbling pain. So to start with, it was just I couldn't get comfy, couldn't kind of quite place it. And so I kind of said to my sister, "Look, I think I'm just going to go to bed and see if I can get myself comfortable and get some sleep." But no, I mean, it continued, it got worse. But at no point did I kind of think, this is really serious. I think I just kind of thought, Well, it'll be fine, I'll bear through it, and tomorrow morning I'll wake up and it'll be all be okay.
Yeah. Now that's kinda sounds like, with me, with the I didn't know I had a perforation, but I felt I like the way you described it, kind of like grumbly, like, not quite sure. My family also it wasn't Christmas, it was, like, late May, it was before our Memorial Day, holiday weekend, but they were, like, having tacos or something for dinner and asking me, "Do you want some tacos?" But it didn't seem to taste right. I tried and it didn't taste right, and I just wasn't hungry. So I, like, curled up in a ball on the couch and tried to exist there, just thinking I had a pain in my left hip. It was just sort of vague at first, but it got worse and worse over time. And that's the thing. It's sometimes sepsis survivors all tell different stories. Some similarities, but also very different. And that's why it's so frustrating, I think, when people say, well, how do you know it's sepsis? And it would be nice if we just had this chart. We have some ideas, Sepsis
Yeah,
Alliance uses the time acronym and everything. We have some ideas, but you can't hold hard and fast to that. It's might be different for you or someone you
exactly.
love. So
Yeah, absolutely.
that's yeah, that's incredible, and not the gift you wanted on Christmas
No,
that year for sure. Good
nor for my
grief.
older sister, because no sooner had I got into the ambulance and they gave me morphine on an empty stomach, my Christmas gift to my older sister was to be sick on her first thing on Christmas morning.
Oh, yeah, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, yeah. That's so bad, I tell you. The ambulance drivers or the doctors, when do you know, and I know you were pretty much out of it, but does anybody know, like, when they started to clue in that this was more than cold flu and whatnot, or
Guess, at the latter end of Christmas Day, they'd already put me into resus, so they knew something was very wrong. I would imagine it was probably at that point that they realised that I also had Strep A and that was causing septic shock. But as you say, in terms of kind of like I wasn't really aware of it. I remember texting my family and saying, "Don't come in because they're putting me under," as in gonna put me in a coma. So I remember receiving that news and just thinking, "Oh, that's a bit weird." And
a
then, next thing
little
I
bit
know.
extreme.
Right? And then, yeah, next thing I knew, it was almost 2 months later, and they're waking me up telling me I'm gonna lose both my legs and possibly both my hands.
So you were out for almost 2 months. You finally, so to say speak, woke up around
Yeah,
February.
exactly that. Yeah.
What is that even like? Like, I'm oh my god.
Did you know what? It was very strange because all like I call them memories, they're not memories. So I have memories of hallucinations that I had while I was in my coma, some of which were so horrendous I will never speak about them because whenever they pop
Yeah,
up in my head, I go, "No, not today, thank you. You get back there. I'm not entertaining this." Some of
understood. Yeah.
Some of which I remember talking to my family about that they found absolutely hilarious. Um, but I think I'm very lucky as a person because I've always been quite positive, and I remember my doctors in our intensive care unit saying that when they told me that I had to have these amputations, I was just like, "Okay, when are they happening?" And they kept saying, "Oh, we kept expecting you to crash and have this kind of meltdown," and it just never really happened. And don't get me wrong, I have my moments, as we all do, of going, "What the hell? How is this me? Why is this me? This is so unfair." But
Mhm.
by and large, I was just like, "Well, that's what needs to happen. Let's get it done and let's crack on with it."
Yeah, yeah. You were being very practical.
Yeah,
The ICU delirium, I think they call it or whatever, but the hallucinations, I'm with you on that. I had those as well, and
horrendous.
I always do tell people though, when you're in a room with somebody who is out, like, I could hear periodically, so we can hear you. Just keep everything positive, I always tell people. But,
Absolutely.
yes, yes, because you can, it's weird, it's like, I don't know, I felt like I was drifting through time or something, and here and
Yeah.
there and in and out, and but yeah, I'm with you on the some of those hallucinations. It's like, nope, get back there. You're staying back there. Oh my gosh. So you've cut, yeah, so they bring you out of the coma and they tell you, you know, you went from you were celebrating Christmas and now it's February and now you're going to lose your limbs. And you were like, giddy up, let's go.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I know it's probably something that is very
Excuse
personal
me.
to everyone, but I've just yeah, that's the way I've been raised, always very practical, very just kind of, you get on with things and you make of life what you do. So I was just like, well, they're not going to be telling me this is happening unless it has to happen. So it's not like I go, oh no, I don't want that, and they're going to say, oh, okay, fine, you get to keep them. So what do? You just kind of say, okay, right, let's get on with it. The sooner you whip them off, the sooner I get to get back to normal life and figure out how this works.
Start recovering. Right, right, right. Because at that point, you're in the hospital for 2 months. And did they do everything all at once? And because what I'm trying to get to too is understanding recovery. Like when that recovery does start to take place, what is that like? I didn't lose any limbs. I thought I lost half of my colon, but that didn't impede me from doing more of the activities of daily living, so to speak, like something like an amputation. So
Yeah, so no, they all happened at different points. So I think it was nearly 2 weeks after they brought me around for my coma that I had my legs removed. But it was so that was February. I didn't have my amputations to my hands until April. Partially just because of hospital availability, as we're very lucky to have the NHS here in the UK, but it works very slowly. So it was really, I was kind of stuck in limbo on a hospital ward. Just, my first physio session was them giving me a brush and for me to brush my hair. That was how weak I was. Like, 2 months in a coma doing absolutely nothing was to just see if I could brush my hair on my own. And then, yeah, as I say, it was about 2 months, just over 2 months later that I had the amputations to my hands. And then, so it was like April, May. So, and about another month and a half later that I actually ended up in rehab, trying to learn how to walk again.
wow. And that's when things really probably amp up as far as recovery goes,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we all want to be as independent as we possibly can be. But
Yeah, for
this
sure.
is this is 6 months down the road. And what I want the audience to really understand is how serious sepsis is. That it's um, and some I think a lot of people who are in the amputee communities and or amputee coalition here in the U.S. Uh, lost limbs because of sepsis, because of the and again, I'm not an MD. We're not MDs here, but is it the as doctors have explained it, the blood flow is kind of going to your vital organs mostly,
Yeah,
and it so the limbs don't get sort of when frostbite occurs.
absolutely.
And
And I think that's exacerbated by ECMO too, Jackie. So the minute you go on to
oh,
ECMO, it's even more so that it concentrates on your vital organs. So your extremities kind of get left behind. And I remember looking at my feet and
yeah.
going, oh, they're black. Like, and I've
Oh,
on this arm, like all the way up to here. I don't know if your audience can see it or they probably don't want to, but I have
yeah.
like scarring all the way up to here. And this was literally black.
Wow.
All of it was black.
Oh my
Um, so it's
goodness.
quite shocking to kind of look down and go, oh, that's new.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty big red flag there that, oh my gosh, something isn't, and so the tissue just kind of dies,
Yeah,
is what
absolutely.
that
Just
sounds like.
Yeah, the whole thing
Oh,
just went necrotic, and, once it gets to that point, there's nothing you can do.
I've had a lot of people ask about that too. Like, oh, so why do people who develop sepsis, lose limbs? And so that's pretty much it. Yeah, your body's trying to keep the main part of you alive, and
Absolutely.
that's all your vital organs. Once you were um, then in rehab and learning how to walk again, like what is that process like? To the
It's, it is very difficult, I can't lie. I was extremely lucky in that throughout so I ended up in, like, 8 different hospitals in the UK over 8 months.
wow,
In several of the hospitals I went to, I had some amazing physiotherapists that completely beasted me. So they were like, "Right, we need to get you doing all of this exercise and you are gonna sweat and it's gonna hurt and you're gonna hate it." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." Because I think somewhere in the back of my head, I knew, right, these guys are the ones that are gonna make me strong enough to get me walking again.
yes,
So it started probably, I don't know, probably as soon in as 3 months of having, like I say, the first physio I had was brushing my hair. Then it was
yes,
like, I don't know, like tossing a beach ball to someone or doing not push-ups, doing sit-ups or, whatever, basically working on core strength because one of the things about being a bilateral lower limb amputee is that it's a bit like I call it being a professional stilt walker. So, like,
yeah,
the whole thing relies on your core. If you don't have a strong core, you just can't walk. So I owe all of my physios a very great debt because they put me through my paces so much that, by the time I got into rehab, by the time I got my first pair of prosthetics, I was, walking outside the bars within, like, a week.
wow,
So I think everyone kind of looks and goes, "Oh my God, learning to walk again looks so difficult." And it absolutely is. But as I
yeah,
say, I think in my case, I'd had the grounding and I had the kind of the base there to just kind of get up and do it. And I was
uh-huh.
kind of thinking, oh God, this is going to take like 6 months. So yeah, I took my first steps outside of the bars within like 7 days. And 7 weeks later, I finally got to go home.
I guess we never really forget that skill. Like when we're infants, we learn to walk, we figure it out.
Yeah.
Your body just had to be set off to do it, and then it did it.
Yeah.
And the core strength, I think that's a big one when you talk
Yeah.
about that.
And
Anyone,
it's, yeah, it's an
you got to
ongoing
have
thing.
core strength to walk. Period.
Absolutely. And I think if, I like I say, I use the analogy of a stilt walker because I think if you go to like parades or what have you and you see these amazing stilt walkers, you very rarely see them stood still because it hurts and it's really tricky.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, the prosthetic itself is an adjustment, right? To
Yeah.
have your skin and your limbs on that, and then figuring out how to navigate your body and that. Like, does it coordinate well? I mean,
I mean, sometimes it does and sometimes it doesn't.
yeah,
um, I liken it to breaking in a new pair of shoes, like whether it's a new pair of walking boots or like Dr. Martens or high heels, like whatever
yeah,
anyone can relate to. If you think of the most uncomfortable pair of shoes you've probably ever worn in your life, and you have to wear these day on day on day and essentially just get used to them, that's kind of what
right.
I always equate it to.
Yeah. So it is again, it's a challenge. I just hope I'm not asking too many like
No, you're
personal
fine.
questions, but it's so I can't stress it enough for everyone about how difficult and how many challenges people, when they come out of that coma, they have survived sepsis. And, I mean, because there are other illnesses and serious, very serious illnesses. But as I've, talked with other survivors, there's something about sepsis that just takes your entire world and just flips it upside down, just upsets the whole chessboard. And it, for many of us, like, we're figuring out for years, it's taking us years to try to figure out how to put the pieces back on the chessboard,
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
mentally, physically, and all of that.
Yeah. And I think it's important to stress, as you were saying before, it's like almost like I remind myself quite often that despite, my altered physical state, I'm absolutely one of the lucky ones because I'm still here. So many
Yeah,
people lose their loved ones to sepsis. It's literally like a snap of a finger. It happens, you're gone, you don't get the chance to have an 8-month recovery and to learn to walk again because your life just gets stolen. And that's, to your point, Jackie, like that is literally how scary it is. I do consider myself to be extremely lucky because I'm still here to watch my nephews grow up and to interact with my friends and to have future Christmases.
yeah,
I have nothing to complain about.
exactly. I mean, that's one of the little fundraisers I do here for Sepsis Alliance every year when it's Sepsis Awareness Month in September. My birthday also happens to fall in September, and it falls on World Sepsis Day.
My
So
mum's
I do.
birthday is on
Are you
World
serious?
Sepsis Day.
Oh my gosh, we're twins. She and I are twins.
How funny.
That's amazing. Yeah, because when I figured it out that it was that my birthday was World Sepsis Day, this was like 2 or 3 years after I survived sepsis, and I'm going, "You gotta be kidding me,
Yeah, what are
really?"
the
Like,
chances?
yeah. So, of course, I use it to my advantage. I use the birthday plea when I go to fundraise because and I'm like, give somebody another birthday. In all seriousness, give someone who's affected by sepsis another birthday because otherwise, they're not, especially the little kids and the little ones, and they don't grow older and they don't grow up. And it's all because of this horrendous thing that can literally, just take a life so swiftly and so quickly and so randomly too. It's because your mom was also sick with the cold too,
Yeah,
right? And then
absolutely.
you developed probably something similar to what she had, and you were both sick, but
Yeah,
yours progressed
and
and
this
your
is it.
mom's did. Thankfully, your mom's didn't. But I mean,
Absolutely.
that's how random too, like that sepsis seems
Yeah.
to behave.
And I think that's one of the things that that really kind of drew me towards Sepsis Research FEAT was just kind of thinking, okay, well, why did my body decide to start attacking itself rather than attacking the illness when, everyone else that had that cold over Christmas, not everyone, obviously, but, everyone else that I knew just kind of got the cold, got over it. For me, it turned into flu, pneumonia. I got strep A, and then I ended up losing my limbs, whereas everyone else kind of recovered. So, how is that? Why is that? Like, we need to understand why it will, one person will recover from an illness, really well and really swiftly because their body reacts in a way that most people do. And yet in the, other cases, it will absolutely leave you with, devastating consequences. It seems like a lottery, but it's definitely not. And we need to tap into how and why that happens.
Absolutely. Yes, because that's the thing, understanding the mechanism of why some of us progress and develop sepsis. Why does our immune system kind of turn on us? Um,
Exactly.
you've had sepsis once, right? You didn't have it. Did you have it twice?
Thankfully not, but it's something that I do absolutely dread because I've heard multiple people say that they've had it more than once. And I'm like, well, it did this to me the first time round. What the hell happens on the second time round?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
terrible.
because it does put us in a higher risk category now to develop sepsis again. The
And
sepsis
I have to
survivors are at
say,
higher risk.
sorry, Jackie, I have to
Yeah.
say as well, like, because I'm an identical twin, Um, I do really worry about the fact that if my DNA kind of who knows? We don't know that it's DNA. We don't know that it's not, but it does absolutely terrify me. Like if this can happen to me, then it can happen to my twin sister, and she's got identical twin boys. So if it's a genetic thing, like does it run
Oh my
now through
gosh.
the twins in our family, or it does. You can kind of go for a loop, kind of thinking, oh crikey, how does this pan out?
Yeah.
which again I think is, a very kind of compelling reason for us to want to understand how and why it happens and how it can kind of be prevented. But yeah.
Yes. Yes. What's the most challenging thing of being a sepsis survivor?
I think it's just like, so a lot of people I speak to, I mean, I'm somebody that's quite open about my situation. I live in skirts, so you can generally see my prosthetics. I just find it easier. So, you know, people do feel like they can ask questions, and often a side of me thinks that is so rude. You're like, why would I want to talk about my medical history with a complete stranger?
Right. Right.
Um, but most of the time I manage to kind of bat that back and use it as, an education moment of just saying to somebody, well, actually, I developed sepsis and I thought I had a cold. And without wishing to be over dramatic, that could be you or somebody that you love tomorrow. So please do go and look at the Sepsis Research FEAT website, familiarize yourself, and just, educate yourself as to what can happen at literally a moment's kind of, a moment in time, isn't it? That's kind of, I most of the time I manage to go, it's fine, I'm going to use it as an educational moment. But it's a very strange thing when people go, oh, I see sepsis everywhere at the moment, why is it such a big thing? And it's like, well, because I'm really lucky to be alive, and there are a lot of people that aren't as lucky as I am, who have lost babies, who have lost husbands on their wedding days, who have lost their
Yeah.
cherished parent, grandparent, whatever it may be. So I think that's quite hard in kind of having that switch of mindset over to, it's not just how I feel about it. Like, I can choose to be defensive, or I can choose to not want to share, or I can say, actually, I'm going to use this as an educational moment. But even that is still not easy.
Yes. Yes. And as being a disability advocate myself, I know that we try to educate the public about disability etiquette. And it's not cool to just walk up to someone and say, hey, why do you have different legs? That's not
Exactly.
cool, you know,
No.
but
But
it
it happens all the
happens.
time.
Yes. It does happen. I mean, there are so many issues that we have to tackle with disability in and of itself. Just again, like I said, I think it's an education thing mostly. And disability wasn't exactly something people were proud of or we talked about 20 years ago, 30 years
No,
ago. It was very hidden and,
absolutely.
people
And
even in wheelchairs, you don't see like you do now. You don't see people
absolutely.
using a wheelchair back then as much as you do now. Every
Yeah.
people are more visible about their disabilities, and which is a good
Absolutely.
thing. It's a
Yeah, for
good thing, but
sure.
now we just have to figure out how to work with the general public on that.
And this is it, Jackie. I don't know what the stats are in the States, but in the UK, there are now 25% of the population that are disabled. And I think that there's a lot of kind of anti-disability in the UK at the moment, which is shocking for political reasons. But
Yes,
at the same point, I think people need to remember that it is one community that you can become part of at any time for any reason. Like, just because you're happily walking around like I was on the 23rd of December doesn't mean come the 25th of December, your life gets flipped, turned upside down, and all of a sudden you're a member of the disabled community and having to learn how to live again.
that's absolutely what I tell people too. It's like we're very inclusive, so
Yeah.
I mean, you don't know. One day you're fine, the next day you're not, and you'll want to be accepted, but also people to realize that being disabled doesn't mean you're weak. I mean, you're
Feel a lot
doing some
stronger than I
awesome
ever
stuff.
have.
You know?
I'm a lot stronger than I ever was before. Would I choose it? Probably not. But,
No,
we
yeah,
work with what we have, and yeah,
yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, we don't get to choose
exactly that.
how we wind up, but we make the most of it for
Exactly
sure.
that.
And you are certainly making the most of it, which is my next topic I wanted to get to with you is the Sepsis Research feed. I think I discovered them on Instagram and messaged like Abby or whoever was, with the account. Hey, this is so cool. You guys are over in the UK. And then Abby and I had a short Zoom, and she's absolutely delightful.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering if you could tell our listeners, all over the world what that's about, because I know some countries are also trying to get their own like charities and nonprofits going when it comes to sepsis.
Absolutely. So we have two kind of main sepsis charities in the UK. One is mainly about kind of raising awareness, which is obviously really valuable. However, Sepsis Research FEAT is the only charity in the UK that actually funds research into sepsis. So we all can see the value of education and raising awareness of sepsis, but to my mind, if I look at the successful charities in the UK, we have a charity called Cancer Research UK, and it's not an exaggeration to say more than hundreds of thousands of lives have been saved because of the work that this charity does. And essentially, the only way to improve upon the outcomes or eradicate anything like this is always going to be through research. So we can absolutely raise awareness. It's very important. That's also something that Sepsis Research FEAT does. But the main thing that we do is use the money that our fundraising community manages to raise towards research into sepsis, to see if it's maybe there's a genetic link, or maybe there's an ethnic link, or there are so many different possibilities to be explored. And the only real way to make sure that we're improving patient outcomes, and please, hopefully one day eradicating it, is by funding research.
Bottom line, it's all
Yeah.
about the research.
Yeah.
I mean, 2 of my kids are researchers, so I'm gonna totally
Oh,
always fully
amazing.
support research and, not in research anymore as much, but scientists, one biology and one chemistry, so very much in that
Amazing.
field, and
Yeah.
it's very vital that, what Sepsis Research Feed is doing by funding the research and looking for the answers, because that's what we need. We need to look for the answers, and that would help design better treatments, better prevention strategies, identify high risk groups maybe even sooner, and have more awareness campaigns around that itself. Like, I mean, I was taking a medication. I was taking prednisone, and I was taking a lot of it at the time that I went septic, and my doctors kind of like offhandedly would say, try not to get sick. And I thought they meant a cold, which can also, yeah, be a bad thing. But I mean, I just thought they meant common cold
Yeah.
and nothing worse. But as some of my doctors have said, that the prednisone use probably contributed to the infection in my colon. Um, and then it perforated. So
It's a bitter pill to
that's
swallow.
how unaware I was,
Yeah.
and
But, you're at the end of the day, as you say, you're not a medical professional. You rely on medical professionals to kind of make you aware of these things. But there's so much that is still so unknown about sepsis and why it affects certain people like it does and leaves other people be. We just don't know. And that's why research is so important, so that, people have better outcomes than you've had.
And how long after you survived sepsis did you find Sepsis Research Feet?
Thankfully they found me.
Ah,
So I think I mean, I had been obviously I had a lot of time in hospital to kind of think about things. So I had started kind of Googling things as you do and trying to look for resources in the UK. And as I say, the reason that Sepsis Research Feet particularly resonated with me was the research elements. Yeah, so the first time I became aware of them was due to the fact that I had a GoFundMe which was picked up by some of the British media. So they had contacted me to see if I would be happy to do a TV interview with a very well-known British TV personality who was in advancing years but had contracted sepsis after a tooth infection. So that was the first thing that I did. And
Oh,
then I kept in touch with Abby. Like she'd sort of scan things past me occasionally. And then when they were looking for new trustees, she asked me if I would be interested in interviewing to be a trustee for them, which I was like, absolutely. Like this was one of the things that I promised myself when when I was in hospital, which was that I would try and get really involved in this kind of thing, because if I can prevent what happened to me happening to just one other person in the entire world, then I'm absolutely going to do that. So that's how I got involved with them.
that's wonderful. And now I remember too, there was something you mentioned about when you had a GoFundMe. I encourage everyone listening that if they know someone in the hospital with sepsis, even if you have 100% healthcare coverage covering your medical stay, there will be so many things that have to take place regarding your recovery that a GoFundMe is absolutely necessary. Nobody should try to tough it out or say, we got this. We're going to, because trust me, you won't get it. I mean, the money and the expenses will add up so quickly once you're out of the hospital. So a
Absolutely.
GoFundMe is such a great idea, and
Yeah.
and it enabled Abby to find you too.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
that
Double
that was
whammy, as we say.
great. Exactly, exactly. So, and I know the charity has done so many wonderful things. Like I think, did they have an event last year or something? It was sort of like where someone affiliated had a 5K, or was it a run or something?
Oh,
That
because when you think about England versus the UK, Sepsis Research FEAT is actually in Scotland, which is the UK rather than England.
got it.
So they do. I don't know if I'm sure there are a lot of people who will know what's kind of Scottish heritage is about, but kilt walks. So they do kilt walks in Scotland. I think there are like
Was
two or
it?
three each year. So you get people dressing up in their family tartan, or however that looks, if they just go and buy one off the rack or what have you. But yeah, they'll do, I think it's between like 5 or 25K walks in like their glorious tartan throughout the
That's
Scottish
awesome.
landscape. So yeah, it's a very cool thing, and it's just one of the things that our brilliant supporters get involved in every year. I've yet to do one, but I'm hoping at the point where my prosthetics allow me to do so, that maybe one day a
Yeah.
5K and nothing more.
Yes. Oh, that would be so amazing. Oh my gosh. One day I hope I could be there for one of those events
It'd be
because
awesome, Becky.
it looks like so much fun. And I want to get things started like that over here in the US. I want to see regular sepsis 5Ks like in all 50 states, or I want to see the awareness amp up to that kind of level, and it would really really help so many things. But the what are some parting thoughts you would like to leave with our audience about sepsis and being a survivor? I mean, anything you'd like to
So I
share?
guess my first thing would be education. So whether it's, go onto the Sepsis Research FEAT website, go onto the Sepsis Alliance website, whatever you need to do to educate yourself, because it could literally be the difference between keeping your life or the life of someone that you love more than, this earth. Um, the more educated you are, the more likely you are to spot things. It is vitally important, because it is such a brutal, brutal condition that is devastating. So that would be my first thing. And then I guess the second thing is, I know that it's something we suffer with as a charity. You have a lot of life limiting conditions that give people the time and space to think about whether or not they might want to leave a legacy in a financial sense to that charity that's really helped them.
Right.
With sepsis, I think we suffer a lot with the fact that unfortunately so many people lose their lives that they don't have the opportunity to make a provision. As I've said, my kind of mission is to hope that no one else has to go through what I've been through, what you've been through. And that can only be done via funding and research.
Yeah.
And, it's a busy world. There are so many brilliant causes out there. But I think just to kind of have the awareness, and most people probably don't realize they know someone that has had sepsis. They may or may not know how severely it has impacted them or their family. But if you do, and it's something that you think you're able to do,
Mhm.
please do just consider donating some money, because it could be the difference between keeping or losing someone that you love.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so many of our survivors, I'm one of them, suffer from post-sepsis syndrome. And it really just it just takes you down.
It's brutal.
Mentally a lot, but physically, and people can't go back to work
No,
and they're permanently
PTSD.
disabled.
Yeah, it's PTSD. It's
Yeah,
exhaustion. It's pain. It's not being able to sleep. It's brutal.
exactly. So anyway, I'm going to put the Sepsis Research Feats website in the description box.
Yes.
And
Thank
Beth, please email me anything else that might be good to like the kilt walk. If
Yeah.
is there one coming up this year? Is there one on the
Yeah,
schedule?
they do them every year. They're kind of spread throughout sort of mid to late summer. So there is an official website for that. So I'll try and dig that out and send it
We'll
to you
put
as well.
that.
Yeah,
Yes, we'll put that in the description box as well, plus
fine.
a bunch of other little goodies for people to read further if you want to learn more about sepsis or
Great.
survivors or sepsis research and sepsis research feat, of course. So, Beth, you are absolutely delightful. Thank you so much. Thank you
It's been
so
a
much for
great
being on the
pleasure.
podcast.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for having me, Jackie. It's been a real pleasure.
Yes. Yes. We could chat forever. I swear.
Absolutely.
I, l- I love talking to people. That's why I do this. Thank you. Appreciate your time, and to our audience, appreciate your time as well. Thank you again for joining us for another episode of Laughter Through Tears, the 120 podcast. And I just want to leave you all with one last reminder. This is for information purposes only. Always remember, when you have a medical emergency, call your doctor, go to urgent care, go to the local ER, or call 911. The best thing you could probably do, call 911. And that's it for today, folks. We're out of here. We will see you again next time. Bye.